It's time for Trash Day Nose Yoga with Hefty. Let's transform stinky scenarios with a joyful scent of Fabuloso. Inhale. You forgot to empty your kid's lunchbox. Exhale. A field of lavender. Inhale. Stinky leftovers. Exhale. Watermelon in the summer. That's the power of Hefty Ultra Strong Trash Bags with Fabuloso.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
We optimize hydration, movement, supplements, and sleep, but most people completely ignore the air they're breathing. And when your air is off, your body feels it first. The Blue Signature Air Purifiers by Blue Air quietly remove airborne pollutants, odors, smoke, and allergens, supporting deeper sleep, better recovery, and clearer focus. It's the most customizable air purifier you can get, with exclusive accessories designed to fit your space and your style. Visit blueair.com and use code SIGNATURE30 to elevate your wellness routine.
He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense.
Awful.
He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Bam.
Yeah.
Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sports for the next 4 seasons on Sun Coaches podcast. Titan GPS delivers technological superiority and improved player performance through wearable GPS made for high school football and strength and conditioning. From speed training to athlete recruit to workload enhancement, Titan is the easy-to-use yet comprehensive GPS tool to get it done. There's no minimum to get started, and Titan will walk you through every step to success. Message us on X at Titan Sensor to learn more and get in touch. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, and today I'm joined by a guy that I got the honor to coach with when I was a young buck, and I learned a lot from him in the year that I got to spend with him. He's been a head coach at several places. He's a Maryville College legend, Coach Jim Pavao. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you thinking about me and having me on the show.
Well, Coach, just like I ask everybody, tell us about where you grew up.
Well, I was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and so way up there in the Northeast, and we moved out of the city of Providence into East Providence. I went to high school there, East Providence, Rhode Island, played high school football and baseball, and did a little wrestling, and so that was kind of my hometown.
Was it a big school? I mean, was it?
Yeah, we were the largest school in the state. My school, the school I went to, was my graduating class was like 715.
Good Lord!
Yeah, so we're pretty big. We're big, like I said, it was the biggest school in the state, and so it was a good place to grow up. Though it was a big school, but it was still kind of, back then it was, I graduated from high school in 1977. So it was still kind of a small town atmosphere. But there was a lot, pretty good amount of folks in that area where we lived. It wasn't a true city though, like Providence.
So was your dad a coach, or were you just, you were just an athlete?
No, my dad was a printer. He worked on print and press, and my mom, she worked at Brown University in the admissions office. And I have two brothers. One's a year younger than me. He played high school football and then a little bit of college football and got injured. And then my youngest brother played high school football, and then he played about 2 to 3 years of college football, and he dropped out of college and went into business. And so my brothers and I were pretty athletic, but my mom and dad were not real big athletes. They met in the band, but they kind of taught me like work ethic and, working hard and how to do things right.
Well, how did you end up from Rhode Island to the South?
Well, that's a good one. I went to college. I played at college, but at Norwich University. It's a military university, kind of like Citadel, VMI, but it's up in Vermont. Played football up there. And then when I graduated from there, I went back as a grad assistant coach and coached coached, as a graduate assistant, got my master's. And then after my master's, two of the guys that had coached me while I was at Norwich University were at Davidson College. And they contacted me, and I went down to Davidson College as what they call like a part-time coach. Well, it was full-time, work and part-time and almost no pay.
So sleeping on the couch.
yeah. Basically, you laughing, but it was funny because what they do is I'd eat in the cafeteria a few meals a week, and then I worked. I'd show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was done with practice and everything at 7 o'clock at night. And then I used to go work at a pizza restaurant, and working at pizza restaurant 5 nights a week, 4 nights a week, whatever it was, and that kind of kept me with gasoline in my car. I wasn't married or anything like that at that time. I lived in what they had a house. It was a small house that they gave me to live in. It was really, really small. It was an experimental, like solar house. It was solar energy and all that. Cost me like nothing to live there. So, I was just, but I was enjoying, I was into college football.
You were living the dream.
I was living a dream. I had hardly any money, but I didn't need any. And, I was on a good coaching staff there at Davidson, a lot of guys that, were very successful. And I learned a lot of football in those 2 years I was there. And then one of the guys that brought me down to Davidson, he went to Princeton University. And then he got me hired at Princeton. And I coached defensive ends at Princeton. I'd coached defensive ends in 1 year and tight ends a year at Davidson, and back at Norwich when I was a grad assistant, I coached offensive line GA. So I was kind of getting a lot of different positions, learning a lot of different positions, both offensively and defensively. And so I went to Princeton. I was coaching defensive ends, and I was not getting paid a whole lot there either because I was considered again a part-time coach. I was what they call restricted earnings for a period of time, and so I wasn't making a whole lot. Me and another guy rented a couple of rooms from an old retired fireman, like $100 a month. He went on to be the head coach of the Coast Guard Academy for like 20 years. And then I moved to, I got hired at Maryville College in East Tennessee as the defensive coordinator. And I was there for 16 years.
Man, that's awesome. Do you know the head coach at Princeton now?
No.
Okay, because he played there. I met him this past year, and he's such a cool guy.
What's his name?
I can't remember.
Well, he's probably younger than that because that was
No, he played there. No, he's your age.
35 years old. I mean, that was 35 years ago.
No, he's your age. I mean,
is he? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's older than me, so he's probably closer to your age than my age. I mean, what are you, 60?
I'm 65.
Yeah, okay. He's probably 60. He's somewhere around in there. He played quarterback at Princeton.
Okay.
And then he coached there. But anyway, I wish I could call his name, but he's such a good dude. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because you say, we had actually, when I was coaching there at Princeton, these guys were freshmen. We had Jason Garrett. He was the quarterback, the freshman quarterback at Princeton while I was there. Head coach with the Cowboys, so
yeah.
And then we had his brother Judd, who was very successful. Had played a little bit of NFL football, but then we also had Dean Kane, Superman. He played strong safety for us. He was on the freshman team, and then at that time Brooke Shields was a freshman. So it was a whole different class of person that I was associating with that period of time was at Princeton.
It's Bob Serace is his name.
Okay.
He's been there since 10, so that was way after you were there.
Yeah. So, but that was an interesting place. And like I said, then went to Maryville, was defense coordinator.
16 years.
That's 16. Yeah, we the head coach, there was a couple of the head coach to hire me. He left. Another head coach came in. He left after a year. And then Phil Wilkes, who had been the head coach, who had been the defense coordinator at Newberry and Wofford for a number of years, took over the head coaching job at Maryville. He kept me because he knew me because from being coaching at Davidson, he was at Wofford and Newberry, so he kind of knew me. And so he kept me, and we coached together for like 12, 13 years, and learned a lot from him. He came in and said, okay, here, he threw the playbook on the desk. He said, here's the defense we're running. He said, read it for about a month, and then you and I will talk about it. And so we got it started in the recruiting, and I started reading the playbook and going over the playbook, and it was the old Air Force shade 50, and so it was totally different what we had done. I was Davidson. We were running Clemson, what Clemson with Danny Ford used to run, that 2-4 eyes, 50 defense with 2-4 eyes. And then when I went to Princeton, we were using like what Illinois had done, and using there like a 4-3, and a lot of cover 2 and 3. And so I was really getting a great, I was a young coach. All of a sudden I'm a defense coordinator, like 26, 27, 26 years old in small college football. And I was getting a really great, so I was fortunate to have a lot of mentors and people that were teaching me the game of football, and not just, because you didn't have the internet,
Yeah.
You could, okay. How do you play quarters coverage, or how do you play cover 3, or how do you play cover 2? You couldn't, you had to have people that were willing to sit down and talk with you about it. And either was on your coaching staff, the head coach, or if you were fortunate enough to be able to go, do some, go to some clinic, which those were few and far between. There weren't a whole lot of them back then. Nobody was going to talk to you hardly, about what they do, because it was they ain't going to tell you what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a secret.
It was a secret. So I was fortunate. I got Coach Wilkes, which I keep in touch with him today. We talk at least a couple times a month, and so he'd been a mentor for me those years I was there, and learned a lot of football from him, and learned a lot about just dealing with people, and how to be a good assistant coach, and how to be a good leader and mentor to kids. And his thing was, hey, we're going to teach these kids how to play football, but it's small college football, so our thing was, we're going to teach them how to be good husbands and good fathers, and be a good example for them. So learned a lot of things from him. That was a great learning time in my career. Have spent that much time with one coach, a head coach who had a high level of football knowledge and a high character level. So it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed that.
Well, spending 16 years in one place in East Tennessee and coming from Rhode Island, I bet, that had to be pretty.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I mean, we enjoyed it. I mean, it was funny because when I was coaching at Princeton, and my wife and I, we were dating at that time, but it was kind of a distance dating, distant relationship. She was in Rhode Island. I was in New Jersey, and a period of time before that I was in North Carolina. And then all of a sudden I got job at Maryville College. I was going to go to East Tennessee, and we had got engaged. And it was like, well, I'm not going to East Tennessee by myself, so let's go ahead and get married. We're already engaged. So we put together a wedding in like 6 weeks, and we got married, had the wedding, had the reception, got in a U-Haul truck, and drove from Providence, Rhode Island to East Tennessee. And our first, our honeymoon we spent in a staff meeting, her and I with the head coach. And so it was the things you do. I mean, you don't know any better. You just do what you're going to do, and you just have fun with it. And opportunity arises, and you kind of take a leap of faith, and you just go with it.
Well, we've talked about, I've had other guests on here, other coaches, and we talk about how important it is to have a good coach's wife.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because the sacrifices that you have to make, and
Sure.
that they make for us to do what we do. And
there are many times where all of a sudden we have to start having children, and where she's home with the kids, and I'm like, it's I ain't getting home till 10 o'clock, or and during back then in college I was working when I was coaching college I was working 7 days a week, and in season, and and then the off season we're recruiting on the weekends, and bringing kids in to visit, and going out and recruiting, and it was time intensive because you weren't able to do like you do now, where hey, I'll direct message this kid, or I'll tweet him, or or whatever. You're spending hours on the phone talking to kids, and you were going to high schools and high school games, and you were then getting them to come visit on the weekends, and you're hosting them all Saturday, and making sure they weren't getting in trouble on Saturday night, with your players, your present players. So yeah, it was definitely a full-time job. That's for sure. So yeah, you got to have somebody that's 100% behind you and understands.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It understands the cause.
So where did you end up going after Maryville?
Well, that's when I went to Burke County. So
that's where we met.
That's where we met, right? So what happened with that? I was kind of, I'd been there at Maryville for a long time, and I tried for a couple college head coaching jobs, and always seemed to come in second or third, and really it wasn't working. And we all of a sudden kind of went from 2 kids to 4, and I was, small college coaches didn't make a ton of money. So we were kind of, like that. We were basically becoming broke, so I started calling around and thinking about maybe getting into high school coaching, because I knew, high school coaches were going to pay a little bit more. So I looked a little bit East Tennessee, but I was like, well, they make a little bit more. And then I looked into South Carolina and Florida, and I contacted this guy that had played for us 10 years before that, played early 90s. And he was a head coach in Florida, and he said, "Oh yeah, coach, come on down. I'll hire you right now." And I don't know what got me to ask. I just said, "Well, where did your defensive coordinator go? Why are you looking for a defense coordinator?" I don't know why I asked. I mean, it's got to be God, just in the back of your head, just throwing these questions out, or things, or opportunities. And he goes, "Oh, he went to Georgia." I said, "Why do you do that?" He goes, "Well, they pay more up there." So I talked with the guy a couple more minutes. Like, "Well, I'll get back with you." I hung up, and I ain't talked with him since then. 20-something years. And I started calling Georgia schools. Just randomly just calling schools in Georgia. And hey, I'm getting out, looking to get out of college coaching, and I'd like to, do you have any openings? And I called several places, and I set up about 4 or 5 interviews, and I was looking at Wayne County. Wayne County was probably going to be the place I ended up. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Wade Marchman, of course, you remember Coach Marchman, he called me up and he said, "Hey, Jim, I got a resume here of yours. Would you be interested in coming talking with us about coaching here at Burke County?" And I'm like, "Well, Coach, I got like 4 or 5 interviews already set up, and here's my track that I'm going to. And, I don't know if I don't want to waste your time. I definitely don't want to waste mine." He goes, "Well, where's the first place you going to?" And I go, "Wayne County." He goes, "Oh, Coach, you got to pass right by us to get to Wayne County." And I'm thinking, "Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yeah, we'll come and visit you." And, I looked on the map like a day or two later, and I don't know if much but East Tennessee to Wayne County, Burke County is nowhere near it.
No, it's not.
It wasn't right on our way, but we went there and we loved it, and loved Wade, and met, of course, Coach Davis. Nick Davis was the head coach there, and met Nick, and he was, he's a great guy. And so we went to said, "Oh, Coach, really enjoyed the visit. We were going down to Wayne County." And I went down to Wayne County, looked around down there, talked with head coach, and he goes, "Well, where are you going from here, Coach?" I told him the 3 or 4 other schools, and he said, "Well, Coach, you've seen the 2 best schools." He said, "Us and Burke County, we're the 2 best schools as far as facilities and community and this, that, and the other thing." And I'm like, okay. So we got out in the car, and we're like, well, heck, if these other 4 places ain't better than these 2 places, then which one do you like? So we were like, well, we really like Burke County. So we called up Coach Marchman and said, "Hey, if the job is available, we'll take it." So we drove back, and Mr. Day, remember him? He was the superintendent.
Oh, yeah.
We drove back to Mr. Day, and we met with him, and he just had a contract like written out like right then. I mean, I'm sitting there, me and Sally are sitting there, and he's writing out a contract, hands me a contract. He goes, "Oh, I'll be back in a minute." I'm looking at the contract. We like jumping up and down because I mean, how much money they were going to pay me, because I'm like, man, this is like double what I made coaching at Maryville College after 16 years, And he goes, "Oh," and then he stuck his head back. "Hey, coach, give me another minute. There's some more money coming, because I ain't put your coach's supplement in there yet." I'm like, huh? So it's like, man, we're in. I'm like, where do I sign? And so we went there and were there for 6 years, and really loved it. First year was like coached with Coach Davis and was coaching the defensive line, defensive tackles, and then also coaching the tight ends and tackles with Franklin Stevens. Coach Stevens was, the centers and guards coach, and then he was the defensive coordinator. And I wasn't looking for titles. I was just looking to get into high school coaching, And I wasn't about titles. I'd already had a title of being assistant head coach and defense coordinator at a college. I just wanted to get in high school for the money, and that's why I was going to high school. I wasn't going for titles. And so I didn't care that I was just, hey, all I was considered coaching the tackles and the tight ends. All I knew was I was making twice as much money. And we had some really good athletes and some really good kids and some really good coaches on the staff. And, we were there for, Coach Davis left, and then Coach Summers took over, and then he Coach Stevens, I think at that time he went to either went to Camden, or I forget where he went to.
Yeah, he went to Camden.
Yeah, he went to Camden, and then
Nick went to Wayne.
Yes, and I took over as Nick went to Wayne, and so I took over I run the defense for the next 5 years and ran the weight room, and had a lot of fun. We had a lot of good players in those times. I mean, Marcus Washington played linebacker for me, and he went and played on the University of Georgia. And Cornelius Washington, he played defensive end and some outside linebacker and tight end. He went played University of Georgia and then played for the Chicago Bears. And we had a lot of kids, that were just great kids, and some kids that went on and played college football. And so it was just, great group of guys. I mean, one of the coaches that was coaching with us on defense, Mercedes Hamilton, who, Mercedes played at the University of Tennessee, was on that national championship team, and he was coaching our D-line. And, we had Philip Thompson coached the DBs, Coach Hope, who's still over in that area. He's coaching in South Augusta, basketball coach now. He was coaching our, when Coach Thompson left, Coach Hope took over coaching the DBs. So we had a lot of, Mike Youngblood, who's now the head coach at Thompson. He coached the outside linebackers for us. So we had a lot of really good, I wasn't young, but I had a lot of really good young coaches that were helping us run defense. And, we're pretty good on defense those years. The first year, we struggled a little bit defensively the first year, but then from there on out, the kids really bought into what we were doing. And, we pitched a lot of shutouts and gave up very few points some years. We had a lot of good players, and we just, had a lot of good assistant coaches, and we were getting them lined up, make sure they all got on the bus and went and played, and,
so and I'd like to take the opportunity here to say thank you for the year I was there. And as a young coach who at the time was engaged and wasn't married yet, learning from Coach Pavao, for those of you who don't know, he has a lot of children. And
yeah, we got 4.
Yeah, he had 4 children, and to a young guy, that was a lot. And I couldn't imagine, and they were little at the time. I mean, they were school age. I think the oldest one at the time was middle school aged.
Yes, yeah, my oldest son, middle school, yeah.
And just the example that he set for a young coach, for us to see how you could be a great father and treat to your children and still be a hard-nosed football coach. You could do both. And love on the kids that you coach, but take the time for your own children. He set such a great example for us, and I'll never forget that, because it really set a foundation for me to make sure, hey, when I have my family, make sure that I take time with my kids, because, you can do both. because I've seen guys that haven't, you know, or that don't, and you did a great job for that.
Well, thank you.
And that meant a lot, you know, especially the older I got, I could look back and go, you know, now especially that, you know, mine's a junior, and we talk about it, and people go, well, how did you learn? I'm like, well, I had good mentors. I had good people to learn from. You know, they showed you how to do it. Yeah. And they didn't necessarily go, hey, dummy, pay attention. You just watched them. You know, you watched how they play, and your kids were there. I mean, they were involved, and they were, you know, ball boys, and they were around, and they were at practice. And even if, you know, even the girls, when they weren't, you know, they were there, they were playing, or, you know, they were around. So,
yeah, Burke was awesome. A great place because it was a good community, a lot of good folks. They took us in. You know, it was a lot of great people there, a lot of great kids. You know, my oldest son played football there, and baseball and basketball. And he ended up going on playing at West Georgia. And he playing football at West Georgia. He really, you know, he graduated from Burke. My daughter played softball for Coach played golf for Coach Marchman, played softball also. And then her senior year, we moved to Gainesville. But you know, then my two younger ones, they played in the rec department, football and baseball and all that. And it was just a great community to be in. There's really a lot of really nice people. And, you know, athletics was important there. And the facilities were, you know, the schools were like kept so well. I mean, the maintenance people had such pride in taking care of the building and the facilities there. And it was just a great place to come out of college, to come into high school football and see what a top, I hate to say a top, but like a place that had a lot of pride in their facilities and their personnel and their students and, you know, their staff, faculty, staff. You know, it was a great place for a starting point. You know, it was a good benchmark, you know, to see, okay, here's how it's done. Here's how it's done right. You know, here's, you know, what high school athletics is like in the state of Georgia. You know, and so it was a great place to be, and it kind of led me into, you know, when Coach Parker, who came in, and I was leaving when Coach Parker took over as the head coach. I was leaving, and Coach Parker is a great guy. He, of course, very, very successful. They won a state championship, and I'd known him a little bit from, you know, like 7-on-7 stuff like that. But he kind of took Burke to the next level. You know, we were fairly successful at Burke, but he kind of took it to the next level. And won a state championship and won a couple, you know, I don't know how many, but a few region championships there, and was there for, you know, for a long time, and then just retired. He actually bought my house when I left. So it worked out pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
And then we went to Gainesville, and,
where you were the head coach.
No, I was just coaching defense coordinator there too.
Oh, okay.
And so I went there to be, you know, because and it was funny how I got in on that job. It was like, okay, I called back to Coach Wilkes and said, hey, I'm looking maybe to move, and who do you know anybody in North Georgia that might, you know, have any openings? And he said, well, call Bruce Miller at Gainesville. I don't know if he got any openings, but call Bruce Miller. He goes, you kind of know him. He used to be the head coach at Cass, and then he used to come up to our team camp at Maryville College, and he was at North Forsyth and all that. Now he's the head coach at Gainesville, and he's done fairly well there, and he knows a lot of people. He said, just give him a call. And I don't know how I got Coach Miller's number. I probably called the school and asked for him, and they put me over to him, and I called him and said, I told him who I was, and he's like, oh yeah, I think I remember you, Coach. And, you know, I definitely remember Coach Wilkes, and I go, Coach, the reason I'm calling is I want to know if you knew anybody up there that might be looking for a defensive coordinator. And he goes, well, Jim, I'll be honest with you. I just fired my defense coordinator a week ago. Maybe you and I can talk. So, again, it's God kind of, just steering you to places. It was Wade Marchman to call me, and then all of a sudden it was me to call Coach Wilkes and Coach Miller, and just happened to be the right timing. And I went up there and I interviewed with him a couple of different times. I went back. And, he kind of whittled it down to me and maybe a couple other guys, I guess. I don't know exactly. And I was talking to him. He said, well, where did you get what you're,
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Game night's fun until someone spends 5 minutes lining up one shot. Chalk, breathe, re-chalk, still aiming. While they figure it out, I fire up Chumba Casino. I can spin anywhere, anytime, and there's always a new social casino game every week. Spins happen way faster than that shot. Play now at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
There's 3-4 that you're doing, because I've been doing 3-4 with Coach Wilkes, and we had spent some time with some Pittsburgh Steelers folks and going over zone blitz stuff, and then gone to some clinics and things of that nature and developed what we were doing at 3-4. But when I was at Burke, we used to Coach Daniel over at Screven County. Okay, I don't remember him.
Yeah, Mark Daniel. Yep.
Okay. Well, I said, I kind of got a lot of the things we're doing with the front and stuff like that. I said, from Mark Daniel, he's over at Screven County. He kind of taught me some of the slanting and things like that. We didn't play each other, so we used to spend some time talking. And I used to talk to his defense coordinator. I don't remember who that was. I'm blanking out on his name. He goes, you got this stuff you're doing from Mark Daniel? He goes, he beat my tail in the dome about 3 years ago. Do you want this job or not?
Why, yes, I do.
I said, yeah, I'll take it. And it was kind of one of those things where, again, just people that you kind of hang around with and associate yourself with that are successful, and you're trying to learn things from them, basically solidified me getting a job at Gainesville, and so
was this when you wrote your book? I know you've written a book and you've got CDs out. Is this about the time that you did that?
Yeah. We started getting into, we were really successful there at Gainesville. I mean, we won 5 region championships in 7 years, and we won a state championship. We were state runner-up. We lost to Peach County in 2009, 13-12. On the last play game, we went for 2, didn't get it. But we beat Ware County in 2012. We beat them pretty good. But we had really good players. Deshaun Watson was a quarterback when we won the state championship, and Blake Sims was the quarterback who, when we we played for the state championship but lost. But we had a lot of other good players. I mean, A.J. Johnson played linebacker for me, and we had the linebacker core of the year in 2009. And so, we had some good players. And then I got a phone call from folks out in California at Coach's Choice, and they asked me if I'd be interested in coming out there and doing some videos on the 3-4 defense. And so we went out there and did about 4 videos. They want all 3-4 defense stuff, like stopping a wing T, defending against the spread. Because, of course, this was like 2008, 9, something like that, where, a lot of people were really, really, really struggling defending the spread. No huddle, all this no huddle stuff. And which sounds like, no big deal. But, back then it wasn't, you weren't seeing it all the time. And it was one of those things where people were struggling with it. So we were fortunate. Well, Coach Miller they were running the spread, and so we were practicing against it every day. And then we used to go to Tony Franklin clinics every year. The whole offensive staff went, but I went too as a defense coordinator and sit there and listen to Tony just talk about the spread offense, because I'm saying this spread offense stuff ain't going nowhere. It's going to be here, and it's basketball on grass, and people are going to keep playing the spread offense. They ain't going to all of a sudden just say
Yeah.
but we better figure out how to stop it, and or at least slow it down,
Right.
And so we got to where we're getting pretty good at it because it was stopping it because we're practicing against it every day, and all we were going to Tony's clinic, and I used to talk to Tony a lot about what gave the spread a problem. And he was, he didn't want to give out too much stuff, but I pestered him enough. And then he used to come, not him, but he had one of his guys who used to come, and he'd work with our offense. That was back when they would do team like camps, and they'd come to you and work with your offense for 3 or 4 days. And basically it was like, okay, I'm going against this guy who's helping our offense install, and then as years went on, perfect it. And we were just like, okay, what's giving him problems? And then he'd tell me, hey, well, this is giving us a problem right now. In practice, you need to tell your guys not to do that. So it was kind of one of those things where I'm learning from some folks that were running the spread, and we realized, okay, well, these are the things we need to be doing to slow it down, and we were good enough on offense to where when we got a little bit of a lead, with the players that we had on offense, it was easy to play defense because, we were going to score 35, 45 points. And if all of a sudden we got a couple stops in the first quarter, it was 21-0, and now all of a sudden, you know exactly what folks were doing. So it was a great time to be, there at Gainesville, because it helped me really elevate my knowledge of defending the spread, because of the people we're going against our offense every day. We're spending a lot of time with guys like Tony Franklin and some other people like that. And, so that's when I kind of did these videos, and then all of a sudden they asked me if I'd write a book, and the book is 101 3-4 drills. It's a drill book, and the drill book was really made, it's really a basic drill book. It breaks down into, the pre-practice drills, linebacker drills, inside backer, outside backer drills, defensive line drills, secondary drills, group drills, team drills. So I kind of broke it down in that direction. I wrote that about 10 years ago. And it wasn't made to be like it was basically made for, young coaches, recreation department coaches, middle school coaches, young high school coaches. Most older high school coaches probably know, out of the 101 drills that I got in there, they probably know 99 of them, but they're just basic drills, because I was like, I'm not writing this for NFL guys. I'm not an NFL guy.
Right. Yeah.
I'm writing this for guys that want to read basic drills. Hey, how do you teach stance? How do you, for this position? How do you teach stance for that position? How do you, footwork, tackling? Because, a lot of times, younger coaches are like, okay, well, what drills do I need to be doing to teach these kids how to tackle? Because, that's the thing I've always felt is like, you don't make us whether you're running the 3-4, 4-3, 4-2-5, whatever. Doesn't make a difference. If you can't tackle, it don't make us what defense you're running.
Well, if one wanted to purchase one of these books or your videos, where could they go to get these?
You just you go to Coach's Choice, and online, or you can go to Amazon. They're selling them in a few different places. Like I said, they've been for sale for like 10, 12 years. I don't even keep too much track of it anymore. But you go to Coach's Choice, or like I said, just go on Amazon, put my name in, Jim Pavao, 3-4 defense, and all that stuff pops up. And
that's awesome. Accomplished author Jim Pavao.
Yeah, accomplished. That's my friends from, like, I keep in touch with my friends from high school, and they're like, you wrote a book? You don't even read books.
Yeah, the coloring books don't count.
So it's kind of one of those. It's kind of one of those things where, I get a laugh out of things like that, because it's like, it's just something that kind of fell in my lap,
Right.
And it was from being there at Gainesville, and we had a lot of really good players, and it just kind of materialized. I think about the 7 years I was at Gainesville, we had like 4 or 5 of them that ended up in the NFL. And so, in different positions, 2 or 3 from deep on defense and 3 in offense, 3 off, quarterback. And of course, Deshaun, the NFL, and Blake played a little bit in the NFL, played in the Canadian League and some things like that. And then we had a wide receiver, Jones, Tyler Jones. He played at Notre Dame and then ended up playing at. He got drafted by the Detroit Lions, played with them for a while, and then we had A.J. Johnson, who played in the Tennessee and was all SEC and played in the NFL for a while, and still kind of hanging on a little bit. And then we had one other kid, a defensive lineman, that ended up playing in the NFL. So we were he also played with the Lions. So it was a great place. It was one of those things where we're very coachable kids, and you were able to take the things that you'd learned and really, work on fundamentals, and kids wanted to get better. Cause that's the key is just, is just getting kids where they want to get, they're not just going to play on talent. They want to raise their game, by improving their fundamentals. And if you'll stress those things, I think you'll find kids, and then it gets infectious, and then your team's going to play at a higher level, so that was a great place to be. I mean, I enjoyed those 7 years I was there. It was, great people, football, athletics in general, it was a big deal at Gainesville. I mean, and of course they're very successful now, these last, few years. And so it's a nice place to have your name associated with.
So where did you go after Gainesville?
After Gainesville, I took the head coaching job at Fannin County, which I'd really wanted to be a head coach, and I probably should have stayed in Gainesville a few more years, but I was just, Coach Miller was like, "Hey, stay here, and then when I retire, maybe you probably be the head coach because they love you here." And I'm like, "Well, Coach, I don't want to be that guy just standing over waiting for you to quit." Of course, he's still today. He's not the head coach of Gainesville, but he retired. He retired from Gainesville about. I took the head coaching job at Fannin, and I was there for 4 years, and then he retired the year I left Fannin. So 4 years later, but he retired from Gainesville, and then he he went home. He went home at that last day of school, and he said he called me up about a month or so into it. He goes, "Jim, I'm going crazy. I'm sitting here watching Sports Center. I've been retired for a month now. This is horrible. I got to find me a job." So then he went to Lakeview at the private school there in Gainesville and coached quarterbacks or something like that. And then a year later, he went over to West Hall and was coaching quarterbacks. And I think he went to Flyer Branch or someplace like that, and coached quarterbacks. And he's like, I'm like, "Coach, what's going on with these one and done?" He goes, "Well, I said, "Coach, I know what the deal is. You were a head coach for 30 plus years. And now all of a sudden you're the assistant coach and you can't stand it." And so he went and he got him a head coaching job at a small private school like Lanier Christian. Very successful. They're playing 8-man football. He was having a blast. They played in the semifinals in the private school league, and he was there a couple of years, and now he's the OC over at it's in Duluth, the Kula area. But anyway, Hebron Christian.
Yeah.
And he's the OC over there, and they're doing, they had a really good season, and I think they're still playing. So went to Fannin, like I said, I got off track there a little bit, but went to Fannin for 4 years and realized that, it wasn't as fun to be a head coach as I thought it was going to be, It's so it was every time something good had happened, it seemed like something bad happened, It was and it had nothing to do with football, So after 4 years, I was like, "Hey, this head coaching stuff is for the birds." I really didn't enjoy it. I always tell people I'm a really good assistant or coordinator, and I'm a bad head coach. I just don't I didn't enjoy it. Although Fannin was a good place and good people, and the Coach Cheatham up there, who's the head coach now, is doing very well. And it just wasn't for me. And so I left and I went down to Coffee High School And I took a special teams coordinator job with Robbie Pruitt. And Coach Pruitt, very successful in Florida, and came up into Georgia, and was, we were really successful those 4 years I was at Coffee. We played the semifinals once. We made it the third round twice in the 4 years I was there.
So you were my boy Bob Hall. He's good people.
Yep, with Bob. He's a great offensive line coach, Bob is. I mean, we had some while I was there, we had some really, really good coaches. Coach Pruitt, of course, is now he's back down. He retired from Georgia.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
And then he went down into Florida. He's down back in Florida, getting a few more years into kind of double dip it and get a retirement from Florida. And of course, Coach Pruitt, very successful. And they went Randy Garrett, who was a coordinator, and Randy was a really, really successful head coach and coordinator.
Yep.
And then Bob, of course, really one of the best offensive line coaches I've ever been around, and just a really, really good guy. And I mean, we had and all of a sudden that was a big introduction to me to like true South Georgia football and the way things were. I mean, as far as, teaching responsibilities. And we had, everybody on the coaching staff, other than we had 20 coaches on the staff, and most of them were all in the P department somewhere in the city, in the system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a defensive back coach. He was an elementary PE guy. Coach Randy Garrett. He was the defense coordinator. He was the AD. I coached. I coached the inside linebackers, and I was special teams coordinator. I was the county's adaptive PE teacher or PE coach. That was like an awesome job.
Yeah.
Okay. And then our DB, our outside linebacker, our strong safety coach. He was the one in the weight room. Mike Booth. Mike is like one of the best strength coaches I've ever been around. He's on point. I mean, with things and just holding the kids accountable, but also kind of one of those guys that, like the kids, but pushed them, to that next level of effort. And then,
but that reminds me, Coach, of our title sponsor, Titan Sports. That new, the technology they've got now.
Mm-hmm.
Titan Sensor. They do the wearable GPS stuff.
Yes.
And I don't know if Coffee uses it. I know Appleton County uses it, and Grayson uses it. But the eye in the sky never lies.
No, yeah,
and the Titan stuff, the Titan where you can wear it and you can practice. You can plan your practices and you can share with other coaches. And they put all this kid's running this fast. I know Pierce County uses the similar system as well. It might be Titan And a buddy of mine said you can tell how hard those kids are practicing and how you need to structure your practice. Like if, we ran a lot of screens yesterday, we don't need to do that today. And I mean, it's just changed so much when you're talking about how, how he's on point with everything in the strength and conditioning program. It just made me think of that because when I first got started and when you first got started, you did the big five or you did the whatever and you did the running and you just didn't think about stuff like that. You just you picked up heavy things and you ran.
And you ran. Yep. But it's changed. I mean, obviously,
so people like Coach Booth that are like on it. It's
the tech. Cool. I mean, it's very, very technical and I've kind of got behind the times as far as the technology and things. So it's just. But yeah, it's a whole different game as far as your, the technology, how it's playing into, getting kids to their optimal level of performance.
Well, and you said being down there in South Georgia, y'all did get observed though. You got observed every Friday night.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Oh, absolutely. That's what I had the principal. The principal was sitting in. Our principal at that time, when I first got there, he used to sit in on Sunday nights on the defensive staff meetings with his feet up on the desk, watching the game, watching the game film with us. of the upcoming opponent. He had played linebacker at Florida, and he would just sit there, and then all of a sudden he'd be sleeping. But I'm like, hey, man, the dang principal of the school is sitting and watching film with us. I said, this is kind of cool. This is different.
Yeah, people that haven't been to South Georgia, and they're like, y'all had how many coaches? And they're like, and what'd y'all teach? And they're like, oh, y'all don't get observed. And we're like, no, we get observed by about 10,000 people every Friday night.
Every Friday night. That's how they run. And he said that. He goes, I said that somehow we got into observations or something like that. And he goes, Coach, y'all get observed every Friday night. So that's how that's how we're writing this out there.
And if y'all don't do right, we will run you out of town.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And but it was a great place. I mean, a lot of good athletes there. A lot of good. We had a lot of good coaches. It was one of those where I really started to understand about meal programs with kids. Where you're feeding kids before workouts, and you're feeding kids, and just taking, just getting those extra calories into kids, and how important that is.
Especially in rural South Georgia, where a lot of kids don't get the meals at home.
Yep.
That they come to school to get loved on and fed.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is like a lot of the kids, we go 4 days a week in the summer. Okay. We'd go from 8 o'clock in the morning until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we'd feed them breakfast. Moms would come for 120 kids and coaches plus coaches. So that we got about 140 people. Moms would come and cook eggs and grits and sausage and bacon and pancakes and all that kind of stuff. 4 mornings a week, all summer. And I'm like, man, this is different, and the same 4 or 5 ladies, moms would come every morning during, and then we had the thing called that dedicated moms. They'd come and feed everybody dinner after practice. And then dedicated dads would come up with some type of meal. They'd get donated from someplace, and they would feed the kids every Tuesday after. And then one of the churches fed all the kids dinner after practice on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we had a JV game, so JV went off. And then after school, we had this lady that come in and cook like a big macaroni type dinner and feed all the varsity kids before they went home, because we would practice during school on Thursday. Okay, so that was like we had second period, everybody was in weights, and most of us worked out our schedule where we had free time during that time, and we would practice Thursday practice. We would practice during class because we were on the block schedule. And I mean, that was a lot different than any place I'd been at,
Yeah. Thought you were back at Maryville College.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. But that was a real education. So I really enjoyed being there. And then, being special teams coordinator, I really enjoyed doing that. And then I went to Raymond County. And I was at Raymond County for a couple of years. I was a special teams coordinator there and coached linebackers. And I was just, those last 6 years, I just kind of drew back into enjoying things. Coaching, hey, I had my little coordinator time, every practice, 20 minutes or so, or 25 minutes a day on special teams. And so I got my fill of being a coordinator. I had started getting into my 60s and coaching linebackers, and that's all I had to worry about. And then now I'm here at Pickens. And, it's a good location for me. I'm coaching linebackers, coaching a couple special teams. I'm not in charge of all the special teams, coach a couple special teams. And just, here I'm at like 65 years old and having a blast coaching football and being around.
And your kids are grown. You got grandbabies. I mean, you are living the dream now, Coach.
I am the dream. I mean, it's like I tell people I haven't had a job in 40 years, and they're like, well, when are you going to retire? I said, well, when it's no longer any fun. I mean, when I get to the point where I do not want to do this, I'm just calling them up and saying, I ain't coming in today, or on the way out, just drop my key on the desk, and say, I won't be back tomorrow, but it's, there's some truth to that. But I just, I'm at that point where I really like what I'm doing. I'm at a place, I've been at places that I've really enjoyed. Cause I know, coaching can also at times be miserable. You know, you can be in a bad situation on a bad team with bad people, and or you could be in a good team that have that you're miserable because they're not good people. So there's lots of different situations, and I've always been, my attitude has always been, if I'm in a place I'm not happy, I'm leaving.
Well, that's another thing I'll say that I learned from you too, is I never remember you ever being in a bad mood. You were always upbeat. You were always having fun. You were always, positive, and I mean, you had to have had bad days. I mean, now granted, it was your first high school job and coming from Maryville, and you were making a lot of money compared to what you were before. So of course you were happy about that. But I just don't ever remember you ever being down. You were always like steady. And I just remember that. I was like, man, Coach Pavao never comes in. He never complains. He's never, woe is me. There's never anything bad. It's just always positive, positive, positive. And I remember that too.
Yeah. Well, and it's just been like, for me, and I think in a lot of coaches, there's so many that is like, man, we're blessed. Okay. We're doing something that we really, really like. Okay. We're getting paid for it, and, we're getting to be like, okay, we're getting older, but the clientele isn't getting any older. So it kind of makes it feel like you're not as old as you really are, and that's big. I mean, I think, and if you're around places where there are good kids, and my thing is, if you're in a place where there ain't good kids, leave.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. I'm fortunate. I've never been in a place where there were bad kids. I mean, there are some trouble kids, but what I'm saying, like kids that you just say, I don't like these kids.
Right. Yeah.
So but that's my thing is, if anybody takes something away from this podcast from me, it's the mentality of find places you like and go to work, roll your sleeves up and go to work. And have fun with the kids and have fun with the other coaches on your staff. And when it gets to that point where you just dread being around those kids or dread being around that coaching staff, pack up and leave. You're 2 men in truck away from a better situation at all at all times. That's right. Absolutely. Because it's no fun. Something that should be fun. If it's no fun, that ain't good. I can just go work at some factory. I could go work at some office building and just collect a paycheck and be sort of miserable. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to be doing this because I'm enjoying this, and I think that's the way, if you're going to stay in this business as a career, that's what you got to be. You can't just be saying, man, I can't wait till 30 years come up and I'm retiring. I ain't doing that. I don't wish that on anybody. I want them to say, okay, my last day is because I want it to be my last day, and not because it's 30 years. It's because, I'm just done. I'm not bringing any more to the table. The game is either passing me by, or I'm not as excited as I was about showing up to 6 o'clock in the morning, mat drills, or I'm not as excited about practice, or I'm not as excited about the process. Okay, everybody's excited about the games, but when you're not excited about the process, that's when you need to, that's when I need to get out. Not because all of a sudden I put in 30 years, or because I'm 65, or because of whatever, So that's kind of been me in a nutshell, I guess. So been blabbering along here for.
No, Coach, it's awesome, and I sure
way longer than you wanted me to.
No, not at all, Coach. I'm so glad you came on. I'm so glad I got back with you and we reconnected. And man, what a pleasure it's been to have you on. And I'm glad that the game didn't pass you by, and that you still enjoyed doing it, and you're still, having an effect on people, and writing books and making DVDs and sharing, teaching young coaches, and still enjoy working with young people, because God knows they need it, especially these days. And I just appreciate, your friendship and even though it was just a year, just the effect you had on me when I was a young coach. And I just wanted to thank you for that as well. And
welcome.
And thank you so much for being on with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you thinking about me. It means a lot. and I've really enjoyed this time talking with you. And I want God bless you, and I hope your podcast program continues to grow, and you're taking messages on out to folks that inspire them to what they consider their level of greatness.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21+. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.